Okay, everyone, welcome back to ACS 151. I can't believe it's almost February already, but you guys have made it through 3 full units, and we're about to start Unit 4. So we're actually getting really close to the halfway point. You're doing a great job, so keep it up. I just want to remind you all that if you're not muted on your end, might be a good idea to go ahead and do that. You can keep your microphones muted throughout. And if you have any questions or things that come up, feel free to type them in the chat box, and we'll get to those at the end of the presentation. A couple of reminders. You have a deadline tonight because it's a Wednesday at 11:59 p.m. I've seen a couple of assignments come in so far, but make sure that you take care of what you need to so that you can get full credit. You can use 1, 2, or 3 of your late turn-in assignments and still get free credit, but make sure that you're, or full credit, but make sure that you're saving those until you really need them. You never know if you might get sick or have a sort of unplanned family emergency or vacation or something coming up. So make sure you use those when you really need them, and otherwise turn things in at the posted deadlines. So for tonight, because we won't do this at the end of the presentation, you have journal number 3 that's due. Those questions are going to come straight from everything else that we've done in the unit in the first module. So make sure that you refer back to any work that was already completed to answer those questions. The second thing that you have to do is you have to complete this time management assignment leading into Unit 4 to map out everything and plan for the next couple of weeks. So that assignment should look really familiar at this point, and we're going to stay in that pattern of turning in your time management planning piece as we lead into the next unit. And then we're going to go right into Unit 4. So you really only have Journal 3 and time management planning for Unit 4 due. And then if you're attending the meeting right now, you're taking care of the third piece of Unit 3, Module 2. If you're watching this video later at home, don't forget that to get participation credit, you have to complete the alternative online assignment, which is at the top of the page here in the unit. You have to download that same worksheet and complete it. And remember, to get full credit, you also have to email today's guest speaker 3 questions from the presentation, okay? Otherwise, you're only going to get partial credit for that assignment. So we're going to go ahead and transition into the guest speaker portion for today. And so I'm going to pull all of that up. It just takes 1 second. So I want to introduce our guest speaker. Her name is Barbara Houseworth, and she's going to be talking to you today about experiential learning, what it is and why you need it. So I'm going to turn it over to Barb, and then at the end of the presentation, I'll come back up and we'll do a couple of pieces to wrap up.
Great. Good morning, everyone. I guess it's afternoon now. So I just want to make sure you guys had a good understanding a little bit about experiential learning and what it is, and really how you can tap into that with some of the resources here at Washtenaw Community College. First, I'd like to get a little sense of who I have on the online and what your majors are. So if you guys would start chatting in and letting me see what you're studying, or if you do have a sense of where you're going into in terms of what kind of careers you're going into, that would really greatly help our discussion. And feel free, as always, to type and chat with me if you have any questions as I'm going through something that's pressing, because this is really, really important. You know, at the end of the day, I know you guys are all loving going to school and in classes, but at the end of the day, really the whole point of you probably coming here is to either enhance the career you have or to start a new career. And so this is really, you know, about you and, you know, how you can utilize the best opportunities here at Washtenaw, including career services. And we'll talk a little bit about career services. Okay, so Michelle's studying criminal justice and law enforcement. Okay, wonderful. And we'll talk about, this helps me out too, to talk a little bit about some specific experiential learning opportunities that I've either helped students get or I've seen students get while they're there. So the rest of you, and if you don't have a specific career path, that's okay too. You can say that I'm still trying to figure out what I want, but I might be interested in something in healthcare or whatever it may be. That would just be wonderful if you can give me some feedback. So let's talk about, first of all, what is experiential learning? Arthur, good. Our auto technology, good. I'm going to specifically talk about auto technology as one of our premier sites where we've had some interns at. So experiential learning, and my title here at Washington, Experiential Learning Coordinator, it's just a fancy word for basically being able to get experience. Let's see if I can get this going. There we go. Experience from work-related activities. So this takes on a lot of different names or nomenclatures. You probably are most familiar with maybe things like internships. Some of you who are in healthcare might be doing clinicals. We also have co-ops, and there's also externships, which oftentimes internships and externships, I will tell you, they misuse those terms and they interchange those terms, but essentially it's the same thing, typically. Okay, Miranda, good, you're going to PhD. Did I miss somebody? Pharmacy program, that's good, because we'll talk a little bit about healthcare. I do want to explain a little bit about the differences between internships and co-ops, because again, I think oftentimes those words are used interchangeably wrong, and how we define those at WCC might be a little different than sometimes how employers define them or how people in the external world may define them. So the main difference between an internship and a co-op really is that your co-op situation, you can actually earn credit. In addition to gaining experience, WCC allows you to earn class credit for doing a co-op. Now you do have to go through a process, which I'll explain later in the presentation, about how you get that formalized credit. But basically how it works is for every 100 hours that you work in the field, you will be able to earn 1 credit and up to 3 credits. So if you're working full-time, you can probably earn 3 credits within a semester, and it starts when the semester starts and it ends when the semester starts. If you're doing it part-time, which a lot of co-ops or internships are on the part-time side, typically you're only going to get 1 or 2 credits. But that's just a really nice option if you're needing a couple extra credits in your program, but you also want to get some work experience. What a great way to combine those two. There's also things called apprenticeships. Now those are a little longer experiential learning opportunities. They typically are for the trades, so people maybe going into construction, or some of our plumbing or electrical workers will do typically apprenticeships, and usually these are year or more long opportunities for you to actually learn the trade, because it requires a lot more detailed skills before you start working independently in the workforce. Field research, so a lot of the people who are going in science research areas will do some field research. Job shadowing is a great way. I always recommend students when they first come to the school, they say, how do I get some idea about what field I'm going into? So for all the 3 that have already told me what field you're going into, you know, I would still recommend highly, even if you're pretty certain about what field you're going into, to do some type of job shadowing or experiential learning, because I will tell you, I hear time and time again, students will come into my office oftentimes and say, gosh, I really thought I would be really great. In fact, I had a student recently, and the student was interested in potentially going into veterinary medicine. And then I went and did a job shadowing experience, and I realized, like in this case, it's not all about cuddling puppies and taking care of kittens. You have to do some really hard things as a veterinarian. And so, you know, you learn that a lot of that practice is taking care, obviously, of sick animals and sometimes putting down animals. And that person learned from that job shadowing experience that she didn't really think she was cut out to do that. And so those are good ways to explore, because at the end of the day, how do you really know? How do you really know what you may want to do unless you've actually done that work? So that's really important to have those experiences. For our teaching people, student teaching may be a way that you're gaining your experiential learning. And then there's also independent studies, which also usually is through the college. Right now today, actually, we have a volunteer and community resource fair going on. Another great way, for example, I was talking with one of the organizations down there, they're looking for volunteer photographers. So if you're trying to get a portfolio going and you wanted to get some experience there, that was just, you know, besides your normal selfies or the things that you may take on your own, these are really great opportunities to not only get experience, but also have something really solid to put on your resume. So those are just all the various types of words that you may hear that are affiliated with experiential learning. Let's talk about why we should pursue an experiential learning opportunity. And this is where I'd like to hear from you. So if any of you have had an experiential learning opportunity, I'd like to know, tell me a little bit about why you did it. If you haven't had, which I'm going to guess many of you probably have not, tell me why you think it might be a good reason to pursue an experiential learning opportunity. We'll talk a little bit about this first one as I'm getting some of those answers in. So feel free to tell me why you personally think you might benefit from an experiential learning opportunity, or what's the benefit in it for you. So one of the biggest reasons that I see is that a lot of students come into my office in the career services and they say, gosh, I just am not sure I can even get an experiential learning or a job yet because I haven't gotten very far into my program. I've never worked in the field. I'm just not sure I'm at a level yet to be able to go out to industry, and whether it be experiential learning or a part-time or full-time job, to even be able to offer employers anything. So this is a really great way. That's one of the main reasons why you might want to try an experiential learning opportunity, because what I see is that students lack confidence in themselves oftentimes, and that confidence keeps them from doing opportunities that might also increase their skills. And so this kind of meets both criteria. Once you gain those skills and are learning those skills through an experiential learning, you also kind of naturally gain confidence. And that confidence reflects on interviews. It reflects when you're, meeting employers and talking about your skills. Oftentimes I'll see students that kind of are just, very meek and not very sure of themselves when they're talking to employers, and that is translated to the employer that they're not ready for that job yet, even though they may have great skills. So we want to be able to help you get some confidence too in your skill set. And we know the nice thing about experiential learning is that we know you're all students, right? So most of our employers are very understanding of this too. And what they know is that you're not going to be an expert. That's why you're doing the experiential learning opportunities. You're going to gain experience as you go along. They're going to have to do some teaching with you. And they're a lot more receptive and open to doing that when you're an intern or a co-op than if they were just to hire you first time off the street for a full-time position. So Arthur, I just wanted to share what you said. I started a job today. Oh, congrats. As an assistant painter, and I'm on break, and I'm trying to become a lead painter, and I'm learning. It's a dusty job, and the experience is great, right? Yeah, right. Sure is, because if you have to deal with drywall, I've been there. But again, and that's great. I'm glad that you put yourself out there and already is starting to get some experience. Arthur, and I can't remember, let me look, Arthur, is that what you long-term wanted to, yeah, you want to go into auto technology. But again, just getting some of that experience, Arthur, and getting some, car painter. Oh, okay, yeah, great, I see it, okay, now I see the synergy. Thanks, Arthur, for clarifying that. Getting the experience out in the workforce, and particularly how you can transfer those skills and be able to explain to an employer, by painting, I can also gain skills as a car painter or an auto body painter. I would suspect is what you're wanting to go into, and gain those same types of skills, or understand some of those skills levels that an auto body painter might need. So that's great. All right, so let's hear from Mary or Michelle, or who else is on here? Let's see. Right, yeah, if you guys can chime in as to what you're thinking about career-wise, or what your major is here at Washtenaw, I'd like to hear that too. How about what other reasons too would you think that there would be a reason why you might want to do experiential learning? Anybody have an idea? I'll give you just a second to type your answers if you would, because there's lots of reasons, and I want you to really think about, why is this going to be a benefit for me? Why should I know you guys are all busy and you're going to school, and many of you are already working too. Why should I add one more thing to my plate when I have a pretty full schedule? And there's lots of really solid reasons. So, oh, wonderful. Great, thank you. Yeah. So if you want to chime in, and then as you're doing that, we'll kind of work through some of our list. Don't let me do all the heavy lifting. I want you guys also to give me some answers about why you think it might be a good reason. So let's talk about marketability, and that's one of the other reasons that you should do it. So I'll just tell you a little of my background. I was a recruiter for about 7 years of my life, and I primarily recruited on college campuses, primarily all in here in Michigan. I covered about 23 different college campuses to find various opportunities for my company with college students, just like all of you guys. And so one of the things that I would see is, you know, obviously you have lots of skill levels, but a lot of students have the same major, they took the same classes, and so there's not a lot of differential there unless they've had some relevant work experience. And that is a huge differential for most recruiters or most hiring managers. More employers want to see and expect to see relevant work experience in college grads. And I really want to hammer this home with you guys, because usually when I'm in a classroom and I'm talking to students and I ask them, so what do you expect, how many on average people do you expect will have an experiential learning opportunity by the time they graduate? And so I get answers all over the place, but a lot of times it's pretty low, 10%, 20%, maybe somebody says 40%. I will tell you, on average, statistically across the country, it is well over 50% now. And I'm going to tell you from my personal experience, of which I've been out of the field for a few years now, I saw much higher rates than that in Michigan for sure. So the majority of students, now that you all are going to be someday competing for those same jobs, have now been conditioned to also take advantage of experiential learning opportunities. This really is the new norm in college life, and it's something that most are going to expect. Oh, can you turn down your audio? I think we're getting somebody's feedback there. If you would just turn that down, that would be great. And then, if you have other reasons why you think we should do experiential learning, that would be wonderful. Oh, I did that. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, she signed off and back on.
Oh, okay, okay,
fine, yeah.
okay. Okay, so come on, now I know you're out there. Let's see if you're paying. Oh, okay, all right, so let's see.
Arthur, and it looks like Miranda and Michelle.
Okay, oops, sorry, I didn't scroll down far enough. Okay, Arthur. Okay, so Arthur wrote that one of the reasons that you might want to do it is to see if the job or career fair is for you. You're comfortable. Oh, that's great. That's a great reason. And probably one of the biggest reasons that I encourage, especially those students who aren't really sure what path they're going on or which field they're going to go into. How do you know? Again, going back to that age-old question, you probably have maybe talked to someone or heard something about some of the career that you're thinking or considering. But at the end of the day, first of all, you usually only hear the good things. And I will tell you, every job has highs and lows. The other thing is you probably only see a very small portion of that job. And so you may not really know what it totally entails. We see a lot of times the glamorous parts of the job, maybe on TV or through someone else's eyes, but you really have to know if that's experience for yourself. So what a great way to explore. Here's what really thing I want you to understand and appreciate. So if I'm an employer and I see that you had an internship, and typically an internship is about 3 months or a co-op, and at the end of the internship, either you decided or the employer decided, this isn't something that we're going to continue to pursue for various reasons. Maybe they don't have an opening, but maybe they just decided not to hire anyone full time. It is not looked as a negative that you only completed 3 months worth of work and then left, right? Because at the end of your internship. That is expected, right? That's part of the parameters of most internships. However, say you finish your program here and you get out into the workforce and you decide you're just going to start working for an employer and you get into it, and soon after you get into it, you decide, yikes, this isn't for me. So then you've worked there for possibly less than a year. That is not a positive thing to most recruiters. So really it gives you a good chance to test drive that career. And that's exactly why employers also do it, because it gives them a chance to test drive employees to see if you're going to be a good fit, potential fit for them long term. Miranda said it helped it has helped me to understand what the field is all about. Oh, good. Sounds like, Miranda, you've had an opportunity to do that too. I've been working as a pharmacy tech since 2015, and I'm able to work with pharmacists. Yes, what better way to do that when you're working right alongside of them, even if you're not necessarily doing the full work of a pharmacist. But a pharmacy tech does a lot of what a pharmacist does. And so that's a great way to be able to get firsthand knowledge of it. So I'm glad you had that opportunity as well. Looks like Michelle did a ride along with the police department. Wow, that'd be fun. I would want to do that. Let's see. Oops. Let me just scroll up to read the rest of your comment, Michelle. And this made me more interested in the career. Right. So I see students all the time talk about motivation and interest level. And what's really interesting is that when you've had an experiential learning opportunity, your interest level, usually if you do confirm that this is the area you want to go into, gets heightened, and your motivation even at school gets heightened. You become usually a better student because now you can see all the things that you're learning in the classroom, how they are practically applied in the field. And I think that's a really huge reason to do that. So that's great. You guys have had some wonderful experiences already. That's great. You've already been taking advantage of them. So he said, experiential learning will give me another look at how the job is executed rather than just hearing and following what people say. Right, exactly what we were just talking about. So it'll be beneficial for you and everyone else. Well said. So let's talk about a couple other reasons that I think might get your attention too in terms of why you might want to do it. And here's some of those statistics. I told you at least over 50% are now doing at least one internship. Actually, the statistic is a little bit higher, like I said, and I think it's definitely higher from my personal experience. But now students are getting about 30% of the students are having more than one internship. So 2 or more internships by the time they graduate from a 4-year program. So just make you aware of what's going on in the marketplace. 95%, this is a huge number, 95% of employers said candidate experience is a very big factor in hiring. So again, getting back to what I was telling you as a recruiter, how do you differentiate people who have similar backgrounds, similar experiences? Well, if they've had work experience, that's a pretty easy way to differentiate yourself. Let's talk about income. So there is a lot of myths about paid versus unpaid opportunities. Obviously, if you're doing volunteering or job shadowing, those are going to be unpaid opportunities. But typically, if you're doing an internship or a co-op, they will be paid if it is for a for-profit company. The Department of Labor changed laws a few years ago, and they were realizing that a lot of people were kind of skirting around paying taxes by having interns come in and not paying them. So the IRS was all over that, and they said, we're going to get on this, and we're going to make all profit or agencies have to pay their interns at least minimum wage. So on typical, I see usually between $10 and $12 is a pretty average internship co-op wage. Unless you're, again, working for a nonprofit. Nonprofits traditionally still will be unpaid, but even some of our nonprofits, because it's a very hard job market right now, they're having a lot of difficult time finding talent. So even some of our nonprofits who don't necessarily have to pay interns by the confines of the law are paying a lot of their interns now. So that's a really great opportunity for you guys. So many of you will, I've had many students come in and say, I can't afford to do an internship or co-op because this is how I pay my way through school. I have a job that I work. So many of you will find that you won't have to have that obstacle in front of you. And let's talk about this. I think this is always a really powerful thing. So I would assume that most of you are going to agree that if somebody has an experiential learning opportunity versus someone who does not, that there's a value to that to recruiters or hiring managers, correct? Yeah. So that being said, there's been lots of studies, and I'm going to let you guys take some guesses here, about students who were had similar majors, similar programs, those who did not have an experiential learning, and those who did not, and those who did, and what their first earnings were, so their average first year earnings. So let's talk about if I hired someone who did not have a internship or experiential learning opportunity before they graduated, And let's assume for the moment, we'll just use this as a guessing game here, I paid that person $40,000. What would you assume, since we did say there's a value to that, would you say is an average starting salary, $40,000 is what I would pay someone who did not have an internship experience. What is the differential, if you feel there is going to be any differential, but I'm going to let you in on a clue, there is. How much do you think I would pay someone who's had an experiential learning opportunity? And remember, that's 3 months typically of work in the field before they graduated. Take your guess. If I paid someone $40,000, what would be what I'd pay normally someone? And this is, again, across all majors, across all industries. I will tell you, I want to see your guesses right now because I don't want to play the guessing game alone. I already kind of know the answer. It is it's much higher in the IT area of all the industries. That's probably the biggest differential. But this is taking into factors all majors, all industries. What if I offered one person $40,000? What do you think I would offer on an average annual basis to the second person? All right, let's see your guesses. I'm waiting.
I'm going to go ahead and type the question in the box too.
Okay, thank you.
So you said with an internship.
What would be
someone without one?
Yeah.
40,000.
Yeah, Arthur. So $10,000 more. Okay, so 50,000 versus 40,000. Okay, that's a good guess, Arthur. I don't want to give away all the answer until I've gotten a couple more guesses in. So anybody have a different answer than 50? Miranda, 5,000. Okay, so you say 45,000. Okay, and you say 60,000. So a $20,000 difference. Well, you guys are very optimistic. Those are all really nice numbers. Michelle, 10 to 15% of 40,000, which that would be 44,000, 44,000 to 46,000, which is a pretty good guess. So actually, a couple of you were very, very close. On average, across all industries, it's about an $8,000 differential. Now let's put this in perspective. I told you all the average internship or co-op is 3 months of work. 3 months, $8,000 differential. Let's talk about how this impacts not just your first year, your starting year. By the way, I will tell you, I've been in workforce for a long time. If you got an $8,000 raise in 1 year, that is an incredible raise. Most people never ever see a raise like that. So if you don't think that 3 months worth of time is worth an $8,000 raise, you would have to work several years to gain $8,000 raises over those years, I can tell you, on average, because that doesn't happen unless, and I know there's a lot of superstars out there, but unless you've made some tremendous changes in your career, like, you're going from an entry-level position to management immediately. That's really, really, really rare. So to expect that. And then we'll talk about, some of you guessed a little higher. I will tell you, ITN traditionally is about $18,000. Ooh, that's a lot of money for 3 months worth of experience. Again, I don't see why you wouldn't do that for the money alone. But let's talk about the scenario as it plays out even longer term, because I think this is really important, because people think, oh, okay, well, it affects my first year, but I can make up with it later on. So if I kept those two hypothetical people that we talked about earlier, the one that I hired in at $40,000 and the one now that I've hired in at $48,000 because they had an internship experience, and I hire both of them and I keep them. And next year I give everybody, like I give all of my employees, the same type of raise. And just for demonstration purposes, 10% is a big raise also in 1 year, but I'll just use 10% as our raise. Usually I would say it's 5% or less, most raises. But 10%. So now we have somebody who's made $40,000. They're getting a 10% raise year 2, and now they're making $44,000, right? Then we have the other individual who is making $48,000, who's also getting a 10% raise, but not on $40,000. They're getting a 10% raise on $48,000. So they're getting $4,800 the second year. And do you see what has happened now with the gap? It continues to grow and grow and grow each year. And that's how big and powerful that one opportunity to take advantage of experiential could potentially impact your lifelong career. So I really want you guys to think about that, because that is a huge, I don't know about you, but money always talks to me pretty heavily. And believe me, it'll talk to you a lot more heavily when you have your own family and bills and houses and all those kinds of things if you don't have those already. How about, we talked about test driving. I think it was not Zach, I think it was Arthur who said something about test driving the career earlier. I think that's a good way. How do you know? It's not all what we see on TV, right? And then let's talk about the odds of getting potentially that internship turned into a full-time opportunity. So I already gave you the answer here about how many of those actually turn into full-time opportunities. That is usually about 60% of the time. So sometimes students are a little disappointed by this number. They're thinking, oh gosh, that's kind of low. But let's talk about that. So I think this is really a good perspective to put in it. First of all, not everybody who does an internship wants to be hired. They may decide after doing it, this isn't for them. So they may take themselves out of that field altogether. Sometimes companies don't really have a full-time experience. Most of the time they are doing it so they can hire a full-time, but their hiring needs may vary, and at the time that you finish your internship, they just may not have that. So it may not have anything to do with you personally, but they may also just find it's not a good fit for whatever reason. And there's lots of reasons why they may not hire you. It may not be personal, it just is not a good fit. Let's also put this in perspective in terms of finding a job if you were going to do an internet search. So I can tell you again from being a recruiter for many years, if I posted a job on Indeed or Monster or Career Builder, any of those big job boards where a lot of people look for jobs, they're great resources to find lots of opportunities. The downside to those kinds of job boards is lots of people know about them. In fact, most of the people, if I ask them, where have you thought about looking for a job, or who have you heard about, where have you heard about finding jobs, what kinds of resources, they almost always come back to me and at least say Indeed or Career Builder. So that being said, on average, it would not have been unusual for me to get over 100 resumes for one job. So what the odds are there is 1% or less if more than 100 people apply. 1% is not a great odds. 60% is a pretty good odds compared to 1%. So I like those odds a lot better. I think you can really prove to yourself. And then you can already see there's lots of other reasons other than just getting that full-time job. Although I know many of you, that's why you want to do it. You continue to do it. This last reason is probably one of the most powerful things that I think you could do there. So you certainly all need professional references, and many of you may not have that. Most of my students don't really have a lot of professional references because they haven't been out in the industry, or maybe they haven't even had one of their first paying jobs. So you need that. You need to network with people, because I can tell you in my career, I cannot tell you how many times somebody has referred me to a job, introduced me to someone who had a job opportunity. That is probably, and quite frankly, I know it's a nomenclature that people think, oh, you know, jobs are easy to find. There's tons of them on the internet. There are. But the truth of the matter is, to this day, the #1 way still, with all the resources and internet, job boards, and all the things that we have available at our fingertips, the #1 way people still find jobs is networking. It still is, and probably will continue to be for many years to come. And so that's the other thing that it can do. Even if that job doesn't turn into that full-time opportunity, you're going to meet lots of people in that job who know lots of other people and lots of other jobs in lots of other industries. And so those are great, great people to cultivate and learn, and get those people on board with you and get at least a name and somebody you can keep in contact. Sometimes I think for students that networking is just so for professional development. Hey, you know, if I had some more questions about the field, or if I wanted to ask you some things about career advice, about next steps, like what classes should I really be concentrating on, or where would you recommend I talk to, you know, or go to attend user groups or meeting groups to network with more professionals in my field, what would you recommend? Those are great mentors to really cultivate while you're doing an experiential learning opportunity. The last reason I talk about is because those are all good professional reasons, all reasons why you might want to do it for your career. But I don't think the students often think about, how does this impact my educational experience? And so I really like to drive home this last this slide, and it talks about the process of learning. So we all are different learners, right? And I can tell you for myself and for most people, we're extremely visual learners. Most people can't just listen to something and then learn by listening. So even this talk or most of the lectures that you might hear, on average, long-term retention is not that great, 5%. So if you'll see, we retain 75% of what we do compared to 5% of what we hear. 5%, I'm always amazed that we even pass tests. We only remember 5% long-term. But that being said, look at the learning difference between what we retain when we do some work, or we do something practical applications versus what we just hear. I see it all the time in my office. Students come back from internships and co-ops and say, gosh, you know what? School was pretty hard for me before I started my internship. And I'm not going to say it was a breeze after they did an internship, that it solved all their problems necessarily. But you know what? Because I'm more motivated and because I understand the material in a practical application and know really what now in theory we were talking about in class, I'm getting it. Things are really clicking and I feel like I'm a better student, and they probably are. And so my really point that I want to drive home here is not only is it a good way to increase your learning ability, but let's do experiential learning early on, because I don't want to be a better student when I'm walking out the doors of WCC. My last semester, my last opportunity to get some good grades, that's when I decided to do experiential learning. Students should be thinking about experiential learning their first semester here, the first year. And really, I have students all the time who get first year, first semester experiences. So if you don't think you can do that, that's where I come in. I'll help you find those opportunities, because I don't want to be a better student my last semester. I want to be a better student early on. So just something to think about. Oftentimes students won't come to me because they hear some myths about internships, and I just want to dispel some of these myths so this doesn't stop you guys also. We already talked about the ones about most internships are unpaid. I can't do it because I need pay. We already discussed that. Again, waiting too late. I can't do an internship because I haven't taken any of the classes in my core program yet, or I've taken very few, and I don't think any employers will want me. Myth number 2, I can tell you, I help students find internships who haven't gotten very far along in the program. In fact, a lot of high schoolers now are getting internships. That just tells you the level was happening going in earlier and earlier. I have to have some relevant work experience. I had a student who told me this actually. I can't get an internship because I've never worked in the field. Well, that's the whole point of an internship, is really to give you that first year experience, or first opportunity experience. So most employers do not expect you to have relevant work experience before you start an internship. And then the other one is, well, I can't do an internship because most of the internships, this is true, most of the internships still may be offered in the summer. That doesn't mean all the internships are only offered during the summer. So if you are somebody who maybe works, year round and can't afford to do a full-time job or full-time internship or co-op in the summer, I will tell you, I have plenty of employers who offer opportunities during the academic year, and traditionally during the academic year, they're reduced hours. So typically during the academic year, 15 to 20 hours, I would say, is an average internship. Some are full-time, but most of them are 15 to 20 hours. And then the summer, most of them are full-time. So be aware that they're offered all the time, year-round. I think this is what's really important to really understand what have some of our students done, because again, there are so many amazing opportunities that it almost makes me sad that more students don't know what's out there. And now you guys are all going to be very enlightened. You can tell all your friends too. So let's talk about a couple of really cool ones. I just picked out a couple signature ones that I think are really neat, but there's lots out there. For anybody who's interested in IT, Google has an IT residency program, and it's a lot easier than getting hired into Google straight, or even getting hired into their internship program. It's a 2-year program, and you have to apply for it either the last semester of your associates or the last semester of your bachelor's. And you actually get to learn all different various aspects in Google, and they actually take you to a lot of different locations, including 2 weeks in Australia, where you get to learn their customer service department there. So that's a really great way if you want to incorporate some travel and some fun and work for a really cool, big, progressive company. Google has that program that we can help you get affiliated with. There is a wonderful program, and a lot of programs actually now are starting to do this more. They're offering scholarships and internships all combined in one. The federal government has a program called the Smart Scholarship, and I put the link on here because any of you who are interested in STEM types of fields, so science, technology, engineering, or math, any of those types of fields or related fields to that, are eligible to apply for this STEM scholarship. It is somewhat driven by academics, so you do, I believe it's a 3.0 that you must have in order to apply for this program. Here's the really cool thing. You can apply freshman year. It is a 100% full tuition scholarship, 4 years, even into advanced degrees. So if you decided you wanted to go on to get your master's or doctorate, they also include that if you qualify for the scholarship program. It allows you to do an internship every summer that you participate in the program, paid, of which they pay about $25,000 for that internship, in addition to the scholarship, in addition to offering you a book allowance, in addition to offering you health care insurance. Amazing opportunity to work on some incredible projects in the federal government, and you don't have to all go to Washington, D.C. There's some here, right here in Michigan, if you're in Michigan. Some of you may not be here. And you're working on things like robotics, and for the science people, they're working in the labs doing work on genetics, and it's amazing. And there's at that site that I directed you to, there's other types of programs within the federal government, but go to the Smart Scholarship Program, and you can actually watch a video about some of the work that those people are doing. You do have to apply. The deadline just expired, but it'll be re-upping again every year because it stopped December 1st, but they'll open it up usually around April or May time again, and it'll run till December 1st again. This is a really cool one for Arthur. I want you to pay special attention to this. So University of Michigan has, maybe you've all heard of it, a Transportation Research Institute, or MCITI, maybe is what you've heard of. They're out now testing autonomous vehicles. We at WCC also have a very big stake in the autonomous vehicle or the self-driving cars. And so 6 of our students, as of 2 weeks, will be going out to U of M's Transportation Research Institute, actually installing sensors, taking away data, putting in equipment that's going to actually be tracking all the information that's coming back on these smart cars so they can help design these cars better. And then they're going to use that information, look at the data to help constantly improve the vehicle so that they can make them smarter and more autonomous. And it's a really wonderful cutting edge opportunity to work on autonomous vehicle. Pretty cool stuff. We also have a big project going on at Willow Run where there's actually a test track going on in that area. So if you're interested in autonomous vehicles, or even on the IT side, it doesn't have to be someone who's just in auto service. If you have any interest in that area, this is a great opportunity. They're going to continue to hire at least 6 students from us every year because they have over 3,000 vehicles that they're going to man with these various equipment and put out in the roads. Pretty cool. General Motors hired for internships some of our students last year to work in various areas in their testing facilities. Some of them worked out at the proving grounds. Some were doing crash testing. Some were doing improvements on various specs. And these are students who are, again, first, second level year students. These are not students who are getting close to getting bachelor's degrees. But this is the really cool thing about it. Every single one of our students who went on an internship from General Motors got offered a full-time job from that internship contingent upon they complete their program here at WCC. So that is really cool to already have a full-time job at GM lined up just because they showed their stuff on an internship. So really, really wonderful opportunities, and I hope you guys get to take advantage of. There's lots more I can tell you in every one of your fields. Please come see us. So how do I find these co-opted internships? Well, I'm going to tell you first and foremost, it's a lot easier if you can come into the Career Services office. I know some of you may not be able to do that. I know some of you are distant learning people and may not be here on campus. So I wanted to give you some resources. But if you are, first and foremost, it's much easier if you come to our office, and I'll tell you why, not just because I like to tout my own services and I think I'm such a great person here to help you, but although I do, but I do think that what we can do for you versus what you can do on your own is that we can provide those. Remember I talked about how essential those networking opportunities are? I know the person personally at General Motors, and that's how our students got that opportunity. We know the hiring managers at most of the companies we work with very closely. And while I can't get you the job oftentimes, what I can do is say, hey, Joe, I have a student here that I really think you should look at the resume. And guess what? They usually do. I picked up the phone before. I got a student who was interested in sports and conditioning coaching. Never had first semester student actually. He's just completing his first semester here at WCC. Never had any background in strength and conditioning coach. I knew there was an opportunity at the U of M here. We picked up the phone. His dream job, by the way, this is a really cool story. His dream job, when I asked him what he wants to do long-term, was to work with Olympic athletes, excuse me, and helping them meet their ultimate fitness goals. Which is a really cool job, right? He picked up the phone to the gentleman I knew over at U of M. He told him exactly what he needed to do to get that internship, go get your CPR license, a couple other things on the list. The student followed that list. He job shadowed and he was offered that full-time job. But here's what's really cool about it. As I was getting off the phone with him, he said, oh, by the way, this isn't just a strength and conditioning opportunity with our students here at U of M. This is specifically a strength and conditioning opportunity working with our students who are preparing for the Olympics. Isn't that cool? So he got his dream job, and this was total coincidence. I did not know that, but it was a great coincidence. And he actually did that last summer, and he got to work with those future Olympians. I think that's a pretty cool reason why you might want to do something like that. But here's some other resources. Intern in Michigan, if you are in the Michigan area, is a free resource. It's kind of like a match.com for internships. So you fill out a profile and then they look at the opportunities and see which ones most match your skills and your abilities. That's a really nice resource. There's the link to that resource. Job boards, we talked about these job boards, Master Career Builder, that they're not really great sites, but they are great sites to see in terms of getting jobs, actual jobs. They are great sites to see which companies are hiring lots of interns and where there might be opportunities. And so I use those because oftentimes employers will not post internships or co-ops on those big sites because they cost them a lot of money. We rarely did. But if you look at what they're hiring for full-time jobs in the area that you're interested in, then go to their website, and that's why I say the company website, and look in their careers. Lo and behold, there's their internship. So the really nice way to use as a cross-reference, go on Indeed or Career Builder, look at a company that might be hiring for whatever career path you're looking, and then go right to their website, look in their career section, and oftentimes you'll see something that says internships or students, and they'll have opportunities on their website, but not posted on Career Builder and Indeed. And then the final one is Career Connection. I've got just a couple of minutes here. I'm going to show you in the end. There's an internal resources at WCC, and it is a job board just for WCC students and alumni. That's off of our main web page, so wccnet.edu. That has job postings for students and alumni. The great thing about this is those jobs are almost always exclusively really relatable to students. So you're not seeing jobs on there that require 5 or 10 years of experience. You're not seeing jobs on there that typically would require a master's degree level or even a bachelor's degree. Most of them are really well suited for our students, all industries. Right now we have almost 400 job postings on there right now. And many of them are internships, and some of them are part-time work or full-time work too. But I'll show you that resource and how to get to it real quick. And then what else can we do at Career Services? So if you're not just, for whatever reason, if I haven't convinced you enough about experiential learning, if you want to still see us, we certainly can help you in other ways too. All of you probably have to write a resume and do a cover letter. So if that's the case, we can help you, and we can help you customize that towards the industry. Okay, good. So that's good for class. And then also if you want us just to be able to give you some more insight into it, that's great. You already have the foundation here, and we can help you also figure out how to market that better so that you get better results with that resume. Mock interviews, I will tell you that most students, including myself, when I was a student and even now, I don't interview very often, right? So most students aren't very good at interviewing because most people aren't very good at interviewing, quite frankly. Because you don't do it very often. And how good are you at any skill if you only do it once every few years? Not usually very good. So most students are really concerned about how nervous they get in mock interviews, I can tell you a lot of those concerns can be alleviated by practicing it and knowing what to practice. Oftentimes students come in and say, why did they ask me that question? Why did they ask me what are my weaknesses? How am I supposed to answer that in a mock interview? Well, I can tell you. I can tell you exactly what to say, what not to say, and still stay true to yourself, because we always want you to obviously give truthful answers in a mock interview. But it really helps. It's amazing. I will sit down with someone, do a base interview with them before I give them any coaching, and then we'll do another one after we've done some coaching. And the improvements in even just one session are incredible. So please take advantage if you can. If you are not local and can't come to our offices, I've done them Skype. I've done Skype interviews, so I'll be glad to do those. In fact, those are becoming more and more common in general. So if that's the hang up, I can do that too. Just let us know. And then again, making those connections, making it easier for you to find those jobs. So please make an appointment with us to explore the opportunities. We can help you develop a cover letter resume if you haven't already, but it sounds like you guys are one step ahead of the game. And then begin your job search and practice interviewing. So above all else, if I leave you with anything, I know you're only going to remember 5% of what I probably said here today. Please, please, please come see us, or at least consult with us. How do you do that? By the way, here's just some co-op steps. I'll leave this. I think you're going to give them a copy of the presentation. Yep. There are a few steps. You do need to talk to myself first to start this process, but here are the steps for co-ops. I'm not going to read all this, but there are some steps if you are interested in getting credit for the experiential learning. I put that in here. But here's my contact information. So if you want, and I work with all majors. I handle all majors here at the college, all students for experiential learning. If you want to see a part-time, or if you're interested in part-time or full-time work, that'd be another advisor in our career services, but I can hook you up with them. That's my email. So feel free to email me if you'd like to make an appointment. Or call. Probably the best thing to really do is call our main office number, which I put here, 734-677-5115, 5155. 5115 is mine. You want to call their direct office. They can look at my schedule, they can look at your schedule, and they can figure out which one works best for you. So why I pull this up about Career Connection and show you this just real quickly. Any questions, feel free to type those in while I'm doing this and going over the internet here.
We've got one there from Miranda.
Okay, let's see what you have to say, Miranda. Oops, let me see.
She says, who can we meet with at the career services to help with resume and cover letter writing?
So all of us do that at career services. I do that. My two counterparts, we have, how the office is divided is we have two full-time advisors that handle full-time and part-time opportunities, and they're divided by major. So if you call the main office and you say, I'm a criminal justice major, they'll tell you which advisor you're going to see. Or if you call and you say I'm auto service major, they'll tell you which advisor you can see. And all of us can help you with resumes and cover letting. So good question, thanks. So let me just show you this. Pull this up real quick. Oops. So if this is the WCC main website, it's wccnet.edu. If you scroll down to here where it says services and you click on career services, and then you go over to this lovely box right here. It's not really intuitive, but it says get connected on Career Connection, and see how I've got this little hand now that lets me click on that box. And then you would all be students or alumni someday. So you click on that box, and then you would log in here just like you would to Blackboard. And that would actually take you to the Career Connection website, where you'll see lots of job postings. The other really cool thing about that free service, by the way, this is a lifelong service. So even if you leave WCC, you can still access this as an alumni. The other really cool thing is it has an employer directory. And what I think is really powerful, when you apply for a job on, especially the big job boards, you're just sending it out to space, even on the websites, right? You don't know where it's going or what individuals are reviewing it. We have an employer directory in Career Connection. So most of the employers who post their positions and who work with us will actually post their contact information, including their phone numbers and their emails. And so what I recommend, even if you are applying on Indeed and you want to do it that way, apply through the regular channels, go back to our employer directory, see if there's somebody, that company is listed in our employer directory, and then send another copy of your resume to that individual saying that you just applied on their website but you wanted to send them another copy in hopes that they would take a look at it and hope get an opportunity to interview. I can tell you the majority of people are not doing that out there because they don't know those contacts. So it's a really great resource. I hope you all take advantage of Career Connection. Any other last minute questions? We have a few minutes here, but I just want to make sure before I take off that I answer any pressing questions. I hope at the very least I've convinced you all that this is something you really need to take advantage of. And if you don't have questions right now, I know that you are all going to pose questions to me later, so I look forward to getting those questions from you too. So at the very least, have a very great day. I'll turn it back over. If you have some further questions, I'll hang around for a few minutes as we close out. Thanks.
Yeah. So you guys just got a ton of really awesome, helpful information that I wish I had taken it upon myself to find or to access or to ask about in terms of beginning to explore the steps I needed to take to really identify and then not just identify the career I wanted, but then go get it. And I think that is a really, really cool opportunity that you have. So before we end the presentation, and while you've got Barbara right here, do you want to ask any other questions at all that she might be able to answer? Arthur, that looks like that's a comment specifically for me, so I will absolutely respond to that when I get your email. Do you guys have any other questions specific to the presentation today? And I also will share the PowerPoint with you, and you can see it in the recording. But just in case you do think of something, especially as you're putting together your cover letters and resumes for the end of this class, or you're preparing for your mock interview assignment as we get further along in the units, it might be a really good idea to go ahead and reach out and start really thinking about what you need to do to get those cover letters and resumes in the shape they need to be in for the class assignment anyway. So don't forget about this contact information that was shared with you. Thank you for attending the live session. And if you don't have any other immediate questions right now, feel free to reach out after the presentation. And don't forget that you all have a deadline tonight at 11:59 p.m. So thank you again, Barb. Thank you so much for coming and sharing all that information. Oh, there is one more question. Sorry. Miranda says, I didn't hear about resources on transfer. How does the Career Service help with transfers?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll let you come back up.
Okay, so Miranda, in terms of transfer resources, I'm trying to understand exactly what your question is, but if you're interested in transferring, many of my transfer students come see Career Services because they have to write an application to the school that they're transferring. In fact, I just had a student who was doing that for U of M, and part of their application process, I have to have some type of experience or relevant industry exposure. So they'll often come see us and say, gosh, what can I do here in the next month or so while I'm writing this application to get some exposure, and we can set up maybe some of those job shadowing experiences or some opportunity to explore. But also if you want us just to even assist you in looking over your application as a transfer student, we'd be glad to do that. I do that quite often too. It's just a way to see how you can market yourself a little bit better, or how you can even explain some of the courses that you've taken and some of the projects you might have had in those courses, and be able to transfer those skills and those abilities to the type of industry or career that you're going to be exploring at the new school that you're going to be going to. So we can help in that way. I hope that answers your question, Miranda. I'm not sure exactly what resources. Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah, and Miranda, it sounds like you in particular have relevant experience already in terms of what you want to transfer for the pharmacy program. So I think maybe even just, contacting Career Services and figuring out how you can put that into the words in terms of what Barbara was saying with transferability, your experience to what you're going to be studying at the school you transfer to. So yeah, I think that's probably a really good way to utilize Career Services. All right, well, thanks everyone. If there aren't any more questions, have a great week. We'll see you here next Wednesday. Don't forget, next Wednesday, our live session is actually at 11 a.m. instead of noon. It's the only time that will happen, but it's posted in the course announcements page. I just want to remind you while I've got you live on the call. So have a good rest of the day, have a good weekend, and don't forget about your deadline tonight and then Sunday night. Thanks.